So to ensure everyone is on the same page, remind me that that file is a home widget, which is defined below as a stateful widget with a scaffold, right? So let's proceed to install the Google Generative AI. That really comes in handy when you want to integrate any generative AI models like Gemini, right? So first of all, let's install that dependency. So I'll bring my terminal over here and install that. And the command is flutter pub add Google Generative AI. There we go. So you can see we have a successful installation over here. So the next step is to get our API key for us to get interaction to use that SDK. So I'll click that link and get an API key over here, right? And this will open the Google AI Studio where you can create your new API. I already have one API key created, right? So I'll be using that one. So you can go ahead and create a new API key and follow along. So once we have access to our API key, let's secure it in an environment variable. And for that, I'll be using flutter.env package over here. So I'll just grab that and install. So I'll pop up my terminal and go with the command flutter pub add flutter.env. There we go. You can see we have a successful installation over here. So let's move on to the usage, right? First of all, you need to create .env file in the root of your project, right? So over here, I'll be creating a new file and the extension is going to be .env file. So I'll right click, go to new and hit on file and give it .env. There we go. So over here is where you define your API key, right? So my variable name is going to be API key and it's going to be capital, right? Then you can just proceed and paste your API key over here. So once you have that, we need to modify our passport.yaml file and add .env file to our assets, right? So in our passport.yaml file, I'll just uncomment this out. So I'll modify that with .env, right, and saving the changes. There we go. So the next step is to add this line of code to get ignore file. So that will be ignored by Git when pushing this project to GitHub, right? So we find the get ignore file and add this line of code which include .env file. There you go. So once you have that, you can save in the changes over here. So to run the main app, let's first of all make sure that we've loaded our environment variables. So we can do that. So first of all, let's make the main function an async function. Then we can await .env.load. So we pass in the file name is going to be .env file, right? Just like this. So let's save in the changes and proceed. So over here, I'll just bring in my emulator over here. That's basically returning the scaffold. That's showing the white screen. So I want a dark version of this, right? So the color scheme does from seed. I'll change the brightness to brightness.dark. There you go. As you can see the effect and the scaffold of the home. Let's start with an app bar. So in here, let's get rid of the cons in here. And the title of the app bar is going to be a test widget with any test, right? So you can go with any test. For I'll go with build with Gemini as the title of the app bar and provide a cons value over here. So let's center the title as well. So with the center title argument, can pass in the value of true, and this will center the title, right? So the body of the home is or will be containing the chat screen where we interact with the Gemini. So it's not yet created, so down here I'll be creating a stateful widget, right? I'm going to rename this as the chat screen. Provide a constant and save any changes, right? So for now it's returning a placeholder. That's why we are seeing that. So let's proceed. So over here I'll be having 4 variables, right? The model, which is of type generative model, and the chat, which is of type the chat system. So they are all coming from the Google generative AI, so make sure you have that imported. And we have the text controller. So basically the generative model is a multimodal generative model just like Gemini, and we also have the chat section over here. So you can see it's just the back and forth chat with the generative model, and this manages and receives in history, right? So we keep track of the history. We have the text controller for accepting the user's input, the scroll controller, and the loading state over here. So the next step over here is within our init state, we'll be having our init state over where we initialize our generative model, right? So within the init state, we create an instance of the generative model, passing in a model and also the API key, right? So initialize our model variable with the generative model. So in here we need to pass in the model. That's going to be Gemini Pro, just like this. Then we proceed to load our API key from the environment variables, right? So we do that with .env .env. Then we can just access the API, right? Just like this. So here we need to provide a null check over there. There we go. So let's also initialize our chat variable, right? So we start with a model which has the start chat method on it. Then you can call that. So that's basically, let's proceed with the UI and some functionalities over here. So in here, let's check for the availability of the API key, right? So I'm creating a variable of return type bool that checks from the environment variables if we have the API key and it's not empty, right? So that's the check over there. So in here I wouldn't waste much time, so I'll be getting the samples from the repo of Google Generative AI, right? That deals with the UI stuff and some functionalities over here. So basically we check if we have the API key, then we return a list view builder passing the controller, which also takes in the item builder. In here we extract the content from the chat model history and convert that to a list and pass in the index and return a message widget over here, which I'll be creating it sooner. So if in here the message widget takes in the text and also it's from user. If you don't have the API key, we are going to show this, and we have a test form field passing the test controller, so with some decorations over here, and on field submitted that triggers the chat, right? And we need to pass in the value, which is not also yet created, so I'll be passing that sooner. So we also be having an icon that also trigger to send the message as well. So below over here I will paste in the functionality in sending the chat message that takes in the message. So in here it needs to be within the home, just like this. There we go. So this takes in the message and initially sets the loading to true and try to send a message passing in the message over here. Then we can just extract the text from the response and check if it's not equal to null. So the message widget over here also takes in the text and also is from user, right? So we base on the boolean is from user and check and see how we want to align the items, the messages, right? So it's from user, we are going to align it at the very end, else we are getting that information from Gemini, which we align it at the start. And over here we have a markdown showing the text or the messages, right? Passing the data as the text as well. So that's basically it. So in here, there we go, we can see our nice input and also the send icon over there, right? So let's give it a prompt, right? So I'll start by asking a question. What do you think about the future of AI, right? So that's my prompt over here. There we go, you can see we get the feedback. So that's basically it. If you found this tutorial to be helpful and useful, you can consider subscribing, leave a like and share as well. See you in our next tutorial. Until then, stay tuned.